Hey there, welcome back to part 11 of my WebdriverIO tutorial series. In this video, we will cover different wait commands in WebdriverIO. Before that, let's talk about what is wait command and why do we need to use wait commands. So when you open a website, you might have noticed that some elements load really quickly while others take some time. So to handle the scenario where elements are taking more time to load, we can use wait commands and basically direct our test scripts to pause for a certain amount of time before throwing an error. So wait commands help make our test more stable by waiting for our page to load properly and then executing our test. Now let's take a look at our first test example, which we will be covering to demonstrate our different wait scenarios. Let's head over to Chrome. So I'm in our watches page here. Now we have been opening this watches page by using our URL here. But instead, let's say if you want to open the page without using the URL, what we would need to do is go back to our eBay site. And we have to hover over to this fashion link here and then click on our watches link. So this is the test we will be creating. So we won't be opening our watches page directly anymore. Instead, we're going to do this step. So we'll come to our eBay site first. We will hover over to our fashion link and then we're going to click on our watches link here, which will take us back to our watches page here. And then we'll continue with our test. So let's try to implement this in our test. So the first thing we need to do is head over to our eBay homepage and then find the selector for this fashion link. So I'm gonna click on this, hover over here, and if you notice, this is our anchor link here. Okay, but there is no unique ID here. So if we head over to the parent element, which is this list item, so maybe we can use this to create our unique element. So we can do this by copying this, and then I will delete all this, paste it here, do this. Okay, so clearly there are 11 nodes here, so this is not unique, but we need to find one that has this fashion link. So how can we do that? We can probably try to, okay, we haven't covered this so far. So what we can do is, we can go by the text here. So if you check in our href, we have this fashion text. So we're gonna find anything which is anchor and has this fashion text. So once again, we are creating a custom selector here. So I'm going to do space A and then write href and then just type in fashion here. Close this. Okay, so what we did was we created our anchor tag here using a space, and then in our square brackets, we added href equals fashion. But what we want is anything that starts with fashion. So before my equal sign here, I'm going to add a star. Okay, so what does this mean is, like, anything that starts with fashion, give me basically the access to that. So in this scenario, we have 2 links. So we could change from, I think, 6 or 10 links to now 2 links. So if I enter, the first one is obviously the one we need to access, and the second one is this one. So we can see it on our screen here, but this is another one which is some part of some navigation. I honestly don't even know where this is, but we know that we need the first one. So what we can do here is what we learned in our previous video using find elements. We're going to find both these unique nodes, and through that, we're going to select the first node. So we looked at this in our previous video. So let's try to implement that, and this would be a good refresher of that video too. So let me just copy our selector here. Head over to VS Code, and then let's open up our watches page. Okay, and let's create a new link or new selector. So we can name this fashions link or fashion link. Return. Okay. So since this is not returning a unique element, what we're going to do is, just like the way we did it for our watches category list, we're going to add $2 here. This will return an array, and we need the first item there, right? So we're going to do 0th element. So this will return us the first element, which is our fashion link, which we looked at. Okay, so now we have access to our fashion link. What we need to do next is get access to our watches link. So let's head back to our Chrome again. And over here, when I hover over to this particular item, we have access to our watches link. So I'm going to select that from here, and then select this. Okay, so it's this link over here, watches, parts, and accessories. So just the way we access this link, we're gonna do similar thing by accessing our watches, parts, and accessory link. So I'm gonna do this by accessing the parent link here, which is, let's see, this one. So this is the parent div class. I'm gonna copy this, paste it here. So same thing as last time, I'm gonna do a href, and then we need our watches part. So I'm just going to copy this particular part here. So we'll just say watches dash parts, close the brackets, and add a star before our equal sign. There you go. So this time it's giving us single unique node, which is great. We can just use this. We don't even have to use $2 now. So let's head back over to Chrome. Oh, sorry, our VS Code, and then create our get watches link, and we'll do return. Okay, so since this time we got a unique node, we don't need to use $2. Now let's head over to our test. So I'm going to come to our watches. So one thing what we were doing before was we were doing watches page.open, which was basically opening this entire link. Now we don't want this anymore. So what we're going to do is get rid of this and just save this. So it's going to open up our home page, just the way we are doing for our search page. And then from here, what we're going to say is it should first go to our fashion link, which is this one. But if you notice, we cannot really click on the fashion link. So if I go back to our test, when I click on this, it will just go to this fashion page. We don't want that. We want to hover over to our fashion link. So we want to hover over, and then we're going to click on our watches link. So to hover over to our fashion link, and we haven't covered this so far, we can use something called moveTo in WebdriverIO. So if I just scroll down here, and let's find that. So moveTo. There you go, it's here. If I click on this, so this will move our mouse to a specific element, and then we can take whatever action we want from there. So let's do this. I'll head back to VS Code. So we're gonna say watches page dot fashion link dot move to, and typically it takes some kind of offset, which is X index and Y index. So we don't need to provide that. We just want it to just access to the fashion link there, and that's it. So once it hovers over there, we want it to click on our fashion link. So we can do watches page dot watches link dot click. Oops, not click. Okay, so this is what we want. So let's try to run this and see if this test works. So our test ran and it failed. You notice our before all hook failed, and it's saying element not interactable. We haven't seen this before. So what's happening here? So let's take a look at our test. So it's hovering over to our fashion link, and then it's clicking our watches link. So let's head back over to Chrome. So it's hovering over here, and then it's clicking watches link. But what's happening is our test is running so fast that the moment it hovers over here, it's taking a few milliseconds for this particular white box to show up. So by the time it hovers over here, it's trying to find that watches link and then trying to click on that. But at that time, the watches link is not even interactable. So it's not even on the screen for it to click. So that's why when it goes over here and tries to click, our test is failing and we're seeing that element not interactable error. So what we need now is tell our WebdriverIO to wait a second or two for this particular white box and a watches link to show up, and then click on that watches link. So how do we do that? So if we head over to our documentation, and I'm going to scroll down here, find something, there you go, pause. So what pause does it pauses our execution for a specific amount of time. And it's saying that it's not recommended to use this, but let's not worry about that for right now. So it will wait for a certain amount of time, and then it will actually do the next step. So this is exactly what we want. We want it to hover over here. We want it to wait a second or two and then click on this. So let's implement that. So I'm back in our VS Code, and what we're going to do here is to browser.pause. So we need to tell browser.pause how long we want to wait, and we can tell it by just entering the number here. So this is in milliseconds, so we are saying wait for 1000 millisecond, which is our 1 second. So if we don't pass this here, what it's going to do is it's just going to pause our execution there, and it won't even run our next test. So we don't want that. We just want it to do wait for 1 second and then click on this. So let's run a test again. Okay, so if you notice, it opened up our test, it clicked on the link, and then that particular scenario, our before block passed, and then it moved on to our next test. So let's open this up here. Oh, we still have one test failing, and that's because, oh, I think this is because of our previous video. If I go back to my test, I'm still using this 5 links here. Instead, there should be 6 links. Let's quickly fix that. I'm gonna go here, watches. So we do not have this because I deleted it in previous video. So I'm gonna just go there and copy this, head back, and then just paste it here. Okay, let's run this again to make sure this works. Okay, so this time it ran and all our tests passed. Awesome. So if you notice, there's no error on a before block. So what it's doing now is it's hovering over to the fashion link, it's waiting full 1 second, and after 1 second, it's actually clicking on our watches link. So this is what we call implicit wait. So I'm just gonna add this here. So this is our implicit wait. What this means is we are waiting the full 1 second, and then we are clicking on this link. So even if our watches link showed up, let's say after 200 milliseconds, it doesn't matter. Our browser will pause for 1 second full, and then it's gonna click on our next link. So there's a better way to do this, but if I just head over to Chrome here, and if you notice, even for pause, they recommend this not to use, instead use wait for element. So let's take a look at wait for element and how it works. So there are a few wait for commands that we can use. So if I just scroll down below, okay, so you notice here we have wait for clickable, wait for displayed, wait for enabled, and then these 2 more. So what we need in our scenario is we want, if I go back here, so we want this watches link to display on the screen. So we have wait for display, which we can use. So it waits for an element to be displayed or not be displayed. So let's do that and use it in our test. So so the way this works is you would do your selector.wait for element, passing the timeout, how long do you want it to wait, and then you have some optional parameters here. So let's do this. I'm going to copy wait for displayed, go back to our test. Now instead of using this, we're going to use watches page dot watches link. So we want our watches link to wait for displayed, and then here we're going to pass in the timeout. So the way we did it here, 1000, we cannot just directly add in here because we have to pass in the timeout. So we have to say timeout, and then let's do 1000 milliseconds. Okay, so this is part of the documentation, so you have to pass it this way. Now let's try to run this and see if it works. Okay, so our test ran, and awesome, it successfully passed. So this is great. So we can use wait for displayed anytime we want for something to display on the screen. And we can change this to 2 second or 3 second or 5 second, doesn't really matter. It's not gonna wait for up to 5 seconds. Instead, it's gonna wait maximum 5 seconds for it to display. And if it doesn't display, it will throw us an error. So let's me run this. If you notice our previous test, it took us 12 seconds. So if I run this now, and we are saying wait up to 5 seconds. So let's say, okay, so it ran and it worked again. So it only took us 10 seconds because obviously this is dependent on how fast your browser is and how many items you're running in the background. But one thing to notice here is it didn't took an extra 5 seconds to run just particular this part. But if you would have done browser.pause 5 seconds, it would have taken 5 seconds just for this particular command, and then it would have done something else. So that's why wait for displayed is really good. We can wait for a particular action conditionally and then take a next step, whatever we need to do. So this is what we call our explicit wait. So I'm going to add this here. Let's scroll down and take a look at other wait for commands. So we have wait for clickable. So now this is similar to wait for displayed, but in this scenario, instead of displaying something, we are waiting for something to be clickable or not be clickable. So if I scroll down, here they have this element and they are waiting for that element to be clickable or not. So this is most scenarios you can use this for, like buttons, to see if the button is clickable or the particular link is clickable or not. Okay, let's take a look at another example. They have wait for enabled. So this can be, let's say, your input value. You want to make sure if that is enabled before you type in something. So this is another one of the common example which you can use. So see, they're using this for the username input value. So that's where you can use wait for enable, and the syntax is same. You can use wait for enabled, pass in the timeout and use that. And then they have wait for exist. So here we are waiting for an element to exist on the screen, similar to, like, basically it should be present within the DOM. So what they're doing is it should display a notification message after successful submit. So they have a form. When you click on that form, a notification comes up. So they're trying to wait for that notification to come up. And once you see that the notification showed up on the DOM, they're trying to get the text of that notification. In this scenario, data transmitted successfully. So this is a really good example to kind of display when we need to wait for something. So there's one more wait for command here, which is wait until. So this one is a bit different, as you can pass in any condition you want that you want to wait on. So unlike over here where we are waiting for it to be clickable, displayed, enable, what we can do is we can pass in our condition, which could be a truthy value. And if it fulfills that truthy value, then it will actually work. So here, let's see what they're doing. So in this scenario, they are waiting until the text has changed. So they have an element and they wait until this text changed to this, and they pass in this timeout. And then they also have a message. If it doesn't work, it will show this particular error. So let's actually try to implement this in our test. So see how it works. So I'm back in VS Code and I'm going to open up our search file. So it's been a while since we have looked at these tests. So all we are doing is kind of searching for a product, verifying the text value, and then we verify this search category. So I'm interested in this piece. And the reason being, if I open up our Chrome and search for something here, notice all categories over here. It takes a couple of seconds before it changes to PC, laptop, and netbook. And because of that, sometimes your test might fail because it's trying to get that text and it's not even there. So this is another way of those scenarios where you should use wait for this text to show up. And this has happened with me when I was running the test. Sometimes it failed. And the reason it was failing was because the text wasn't there on the screen at that moment. It was still showing all categories. So let's fix that and make sure our test always works in all scenarios. So I'm going to head back to VS Code. So here we're going to use our conditional wait until. So we can do that by saying browser.wait until. And then we have to create a function here. So I'll do function. And then we need to return the text or return the truthy value. So in our scenario, we're going to do return search page dot category dot, we'll get the text of this particular element, and then we're going to verify if that text is equal to this value here. I'm going to paste this here. Okay, so what we're saying is wait until the text for this search category is equal to this. And so this won't really work directly. We have to add in a timeout here. So we can say our timeout is wait up to maximum of 3 seconds. You can change this depending on how flaky the test is, but I think 3 seconds is good enough. So let's run this and see if it works. I'm gonna go back to our configuration and then change this to search.js. And run our test. Okay, so our test ran and it successfully passed. Awesome. So this way, even if it takes a while for this text to show up, we have added this check here, which will wait up to 3 seconds and make sure that our text is this. And within those 3 seconds, if the text changes to PC, laptop, and netbook, then our test will pass. If it doesn't, then our test will fail. So this is a really good way to fix your flaky test. So if you have any questions on waits and how to use them, let me know in the comments below. In the next video, we will cover utility functions, which will help optimize the code a bit more. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. That's it for this video folks. I will see you in the next one.